Thanks for coming, Winnie.
Thanks for having me, Karen.
This is the Karen Mitches podcast, and this is Winny Clarke.
Hi, everyone. Okay, good job for doing a podcast.
Thank you. I feel like I don't get any gratitude.
Yeah, not enough credit for sure. People who don't do it or haven't tried it don't know how much time it takes, the amount of things you have to learn to do a podcast.
And it's kind of universally made fun of because it's this sort of like, oh, you have a podcast. You think your opinions matter.
I know. We got on board way too late. Like, even I started my podcast 4 years ago. And even at that point, I remember hearing like a Joe Rogan or something be like people coming into podcasts now, like it's done. You know, like you're not, there's too many established podcasts already, you know, like you're done. But I don't believe that.
There can never be too many.
Yeah. Do you ever think about when, like, what is next in terms of technology and how we consume it? And, like, when we're dead, like, this is still going to be alive? Like, is anyone watching this in the year, like, 3000? And they're like, who's this Winnie
I
bitch?
think it'll be interesting, like, even if it's... Okay, say you're doing your family tree 1,000 years from now, that instead of just getting, like, oh, your great-great-great-grandfather was buried in this cemetery, you can be like, you're a descendant of Winny Clarke, and here's her podcast.
I don't know if that's a good I don't think that any of us can age well, you know? Is there anyone over the course of time where you're like, oh, that you aged really well? Like, you were, maybe a few people in the course of history were forward enough thinkers, but
no,
I don't claim to be, that's for sure.
Most people don't age at all, and then, well, like you're typically forgotten, and if they remember you...
What are your thoughts on leaving a legacy? Because what you just said, you're typically forgotten, is so true. And I'm like, sometimes I just get caught up in like, what the fuck are we all doing here? Like, what is even the point? Like, you just... in 100 years, even if I have a kid, don't know if I'm going to have kids yet. If that person has a kid, like, that's as far as I'll be remembered, you know? Like, I'll be remembered by my kid's kid. And then after that, like, my kid's kid's kid isn't going to be like, oh, you're a great grandmother. Probably, maybe. I don't know. What do you think?
Okay, I'm glad we started out terrifying. And I want to just mention to my audience... Winnie runs a weed podcast, so there's a lot of cerebral thinking. It's disciplined stoners.
Yeah. Check it out if you want more of this. Hey, do you want to feel anxious for 60 minutes? Come check out my podcast.
Well, because people talk about too, like, oh, if you don't have kids, you're not remembered or you leave no legacy. But I'm like, no, even the people who leave kids have a very short legacy.
They really do.
And I think my sister's kids and her offspring will remember me as long as they'll remember her. You know what I mean? And then we'll both be forgotten together.
That's nice. That's kind of nice to think about. At least you're still doing something together. Does death scare you?
I don't, it's not a fear that comes up for me a lot. Like, I don't think about it, but definitely when I do think about it, I am not having a good time.
Yeah. That's cool though, because that means that you want to live.
Yeah, but I also just think I struggle to think about like big concepts without freaking out.
Yeah.
So even just thinking about the fact that I exist can frighten me.
Yeah. Does that frightening like go to a place of like paralyzation in mind body, or can you kind of like be like pivot and switch topics and leave that insecurity behind?
Oh shit. I feel like it doesn't come up a lot, but when it does, it's hard to
pivot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure. You're also in the yoga space. Yes?
I am.
Okay.
Yeah.
Are you someone who thinks a lot about death, or?
I did over the pandemic. Like I dove into death. I went down like YouTube rabbit holes of people who have had near-death experiences. I read books on people who have had near-death experiences or spiritual experiences when they were in comas. And like so much of it is just like all the same thing, like throughout. And these people don't have any ties to one another, but the same thing that they've experienced is like, it's kind of tough to be like, oh, you're getting all of these anecdotal stories that are all similar. So maybe that's true, you know, maybe what they're experiencing is true. And what I've come to know about that is that just like we come from a place that is energy, and that energy like feels like the most intense love I think that you can feel. And then we go back to that place.
So do you think there is though like in the end you're sort of like divorced from your personality, or
that's a cool question. I think that they're like, I believe in like Akashic records, which are like records of every human and every piece of existence of all of time, and that consciousness holds this memory of records. And so I believe that like spirit is parting from physical body, but that physical experience that we had on earth gets recorded. And I don't know like, if I can still...
If you were in that kind of space, you could access like your personality or like anyone's that had ever existed.
Yeah.
And then once we have... If every generation is sort of like recording their own art and it's preserved, then does the Akashic record become tangible? Like, do you know what I mean? Like, question. You don't know if like your personalities already existed, even just like within your own family. But like, if everyone's personality becomes recorded and then accessible, then is that...
I don't know if it can be accessible from this side.
Like it couldn't...
That's also not true too, because I believe there are some people who have potentially been able to somehow access through downloading. So I don't know what the answer is. Like tangible as in like you could be like, hey, person who has had these downloads, can you check out like what the life and experience of my great 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 grandmother, and like can you create some type of materialistic thing for me to be able to understand how she lived in that moment?
I guess what I'm imagining, not so much that it would be like the Akashic record, which seems very deep, but say like if say 2,000 years in the future that people may have a deeper experience of reality because they have access to like previous generations of like personality and art within their ancestry that they could like not communicate with because it'd be just observing, but you'd be able to see like, oh, these are the faces of like 1,000 years of like women that I come from, and these are their voices, and like this one had a dumb podcast, and like
I think that's a possibility.
Like, do you think that would be good? Like it would help your life, or would it just be like one of these things like, oh, we don't need all this garbage on Earth, like all the plastic we made?
Yeah. I think that the human species is just making different mistakes throughout existence. So I think if it got to that point where there was technology or something that we could tap into that and you could see that as a human being on Earth, then we might be able to do something with that. We might not, like it might just be a mistake. And then you know, every mistake we've tried to course correct, right? Yeah. Oil, we're course correcting to battery. Battery is going to give us a lot of problems at some point because we don't know what to do with them.
Yeah.
So we'll have to pivot again. We've pivoted back from plastic to paper. Well, we pivoted away from paper because it was deforesting our entire planet.
Yeah.
But now plastics filling too many landfills. And so I feel like this is kind of like intense. I didn't mean to go in this direction, but I feel like as the human species, we just keep making different mistakes and then course correcting. So like whatever is gonna happen in the future, we're either gonna make the mistake that like eventually kills our species, or we're just gonna keep playing.
Yeah. Have you heard the argument that like we should like that moving into cities made our lives worse, but that we didn't notice it because it happened incrementally.
Definitely. And like even now moving into our 15-minute cities that are trying to be built globally, where you don't have to leave. It's already happened. Liberty, like all of the pockets in Toronto, you technically don't have to leave. We still want to because there's stuff outside that we are curious about. But I think that cities did not help us. I think that it was probably the part of the cause of like a population boom, because we could house more people. And I also love living in the city, and I would not move out of the city.
Yeah. But like the amount of like disease and the fact like of like eating one type of, or eating too little types of food, and that like humans were short for like 2,000 years. And
have you heard that humans at one point lived till like 300 or something?
I believe it.
I believe it too. And then we got all fucked up because that's too long to live.
When my grandmother was little, she lived near Athens, and she went to Crete to visit her grandfather, who was 109 years old. She sat on his lap. She moved to Canada. She lived to 102 years old. And I think, like, people are like, we're living older than ever. And I'm like, I don't think my family's going to make it to 109 because no one, like, that her grandfather would have been eating peasant food and breathing clean air and exercising, like moving about. And my family's been like smoking, drinking, sitting, getting fat, like watching TV.
Sitting. I know we do a lot of sitting now. Fuck. Yeah. I think that we can't, well, the air thing is an interesting combo, because obviously our air is more polluted than it's been at least in a really long time. I don't know when like dinosaur times, when shit was flying into Earth and there was explosions and shit. I'm sure that was a lot of harsh air at that point too.
Yeah, there's a period after the asteroid where like the air was toxic for a very long time.
Yeah, but since then probably this is the most toxic time. Yeah. So we'll just have to wait and see what happens. That's the crazy thing. Like, do you think I heard or read somewhere that someone was like, if we don't like really get serious about like recycling and green gas emissions and shit, like we're gonna kill ourselves by like a pretty crazy number, like 10 years from now, like 2036 or something.
Jesus Christ.
I can't source it. You'll also, if you listen to my podcast, I don't source anything. I talk so much shit. I'm going to get in so much trouble at some point during my career, probably.
And if we like eradicate, or if we fuck up human society, and then people find like these public records of just uneducated people explaining like the catastrophe that's about to happen, but they think like, well, they have the sophistication to record themselves, they must know what they're talking about.
It could be like a Simpsons thing, except of this time of podcasts where I just called it all.
Do you believe in like life on other planets?
For sure. 100%. There's absolutely no way that this is the only thing going on.
Are you of the opinion like they're hiding from us because we're stupid and reckless?
No, I'm more of the opinion that they're hiding from us because if they show themselves, the first thing that we're going to do is try to kill them. I think that we are, like most people, I would freak out if I saw an alien. I'd try like my best to be like at least establish, like, are you going to hurt me? And then like maybe we can have some, but like I would fucking, can you imagine seeing an alien? No. Like in the idea of it, I want.
Maybe it's like the only way we can process it if we get to them. So they're like, we'll just wait.
Yeah.
But do you also think there's anything on Earth that's very intelligent, but we just can't talk to it yet?
Octopi.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think, and I love calamari. But I've definitely limited myself eating it because I honestly think that they might be aliens. and like we just haven't figured out how to communicate with them. I think they're so crazy smart.
Is there a reason why specifically octopi?
Because of how intelligent they've proven themselves to be, and like they can go translucent, and like if you look up facts about octopi, it's magic. There's no, you're like, this is magic, you're a magical being.
Because it can go translucent. That sounds magic.
That's total magic. And it can hide in other colors too. Like the way that its skin works is that it can just change its colors to anything that it wants to. It doesn't have any vertebra, so it can like be this giant, like there could be an octopus that could take up this entire space that we're in right now, and it could get through like a tube this big. It could fit itself through a tube. And it there's also like,
so wait, a very big one can then contract to very small.
Yeah, it can fucking contort its body and slip through the smallest spaces. There's been so many octopi that have been by the way, I don't know if it's called octopi. I'm like, octopus, I don't know.
It has to be octopi.
Yeah. There's been a lot of them filmed where they will escape their cages and go on the run. You know, like they're really hyper intelligent.
Shit.
And there's evidence to prove that they like have emotional capacity, and that they like can memorize faces and shit. Like they're really, really smart, and they live so far down. Like I don't even know if we can get that far down without exploding. So that's interesting too.
Oh, because then if it's living at that low pressure, that's a whole physicality that is its own kind of intelligence.
Yeah.
That's crazy. Do you pay attention to people who are like, okay, we haven't explored enough of the ocean? Because sometimes I'm like, well, maybe it's mostly just water. And
but what if it is? I think the ocean is mystifying. I don't necessarily think we need to fuck with it, but to think that there's like nothing down there also seems to me as crazy as to think that there's nothing else on other, no life on other planets.
And I guess it could be the key to like some of the technology to go to other planets, like whatever's surviving down there like is doing so at different levels of pressure.
Yeah.
And away from light. And
have you heard about Inner Earth?
No.
There's some
some
conspiracies.
I don't like going into the subway.
Yeah, I was just on the subway, and it was a time. I touched someone's butt with my upper arm.
How was their butt near your arm?
I was sitting and they were standing.
Oh,
yeah. But it was like it felt, I didn't like it.
Do you think it was intentional on their part?
They did it again as they left. I think it was a putting down groceries and picking up groceries situation. But
you were like, get your ass away from me.
Yeah.
What did they look like?
They were like maybe like a 19 or 20-year-old young boy. I hope they weren't.
They're not the most aware people.
He seemed sweet, honestly. He seemed like a little kid. Seemed like a nice kid.
Yeah. There's a weird thing with younger people, the youngest adults, because they are oftentimes like a child in an adult's body. And sometimes like if I see one from far away, I'll be like, what's wrong with that psycho?
Yeah. Did you know that when you were that age?
No. I didn't know my whole class in high school looked as young as we did.
Yeah.
Because I can remember like at 19, you'd look at like the grade 9s coming in and be mortified that you were smoking at that age because they were like these little baby-faced kids. But then at 25, seeing a 19-year-old, you'd be like, oh, gross. Like, they're children.
Yeah. So
tall children.
Yeah, I had no idea. Like 18, 19, 20, like I thought I was an adult. And I was so fucking stupid. So stupid. Oh my God, I didn't know anything. I still feel like I know very little, but just like back then I was like, you're a baby of adulthood.
Where did you grow up?
BC and Alberta. First 12 years BC, and then Alberta 12 to 18.
Where in BC?
Squamish and Kelowna.
Oh, beautiful.
So beautiful.
So that's till 12?
Yeah.
And then where in Alberta?
Sylvan Lake, Alberta. Shout out.
What's it near? Or
Red Deer, maybe you might know, but it's right in between Calgary and Edmonton. So
Okay.
hour and a half from Calgary.
Okay.
Hour. Yeah.
So you weren't like completely isolated, like,
No, there were like 9,000 people there when I lived there.
and you could go to like a concert in Calgary.
Yeah,
or-
and even in Red Deer. Red Deer was about 25 minutes away, and they would have some concerts like Simply Plan or something, or Simple Plan, whatever
Yeah.
their band was, would come through to like a space in Red Deer. And we had like one of those B League hockey teams. So there were things to do.
Nice.
Not too far away, especially after you got your license at 16.
Were you outdoorsy?
I was much more outdoorsy in BC. There's more shit to do.
Yeah.
Winters are awesome in Kelowna. Like, I complain about winter so much. I hate winter. It's not my season. I don't want it. But in Kelowna, when you can get a season pass for like, I don't know, $180, and you can go up there after school.
Fuck.
Or go up there after work,
So
and
it's
it's
not-
15 minutes away.
It's not a sport for rich people. It's just what everyone
Yeah.
can do.
Yeah. I mean, it is rich. It's still rich shit. Like, I grew up middle class, I would say. And like you still have to buy a snowboard. That's still, I think that's rich shit.
Yeah.
So, but like if you're privileged enough to grow up that way, like it was sick. Like, we'd go up after school, we'd go boarding for a couple hours.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it was such a great childhood. And this is rich shit too. I fucking rode horses in the spring.
Oh
and
my
summertime.
God.
Yeah,
You were living large.
I was yeah. And then we moved to Alberta, and I started drinking because there's nothing to do there. There was nothing to do there.
Because most small towns, I feel like the town sport is drinking.
Oh yeah, bonfires, baby, bonfires and drinking.
I work with this woman, she's from China, and she has like a Chinese accent, and then someone commented to her, like, she's like, she can handle her liquor, right? And she's like, like, I went to university in Saskatchewan, so I learned to drink in a field.
Yeah,
It's like,
that's
dear
just true.
God.
That's what
It's
it is.
what you learn when you come to Canada.
Yeah.
Like, I was in London, Ontario, which is sizable, but it was still like, we went to the woods to drink, or like the schoolyard.
Yeah.
It's a lot of.
So are most teens drinking? Do you think teens in the city are drinking?
I think now there is a decrease in drinking, but you're younger than me, so.
How is your skin so much better than mine?
Thank you.
I didn't know I was younger than you.
I'm born in 1980.
Oh my God, your skin is so nice.
Thank you.
I'm 88. We need to
Okay,
talk.
I thought you were younger than that.
Thank you.
So I was like, okay, so you're still, I feel like there was a decrease, and it might be even after you, but I feel like people drink less now, but they're also on their phones more. So it's like a new set of.
Well, yeah, maybe adults are on their phones more. I feel like the young ones are getting flip phones and shit. I'm seeing like 12 to 17 inner city flip phone. I'm not doing this iPhone social media bullshit. I'm seeing that often. Are you seeing any of that?
No, but I don't know that many young people. I
feel like
mostly know like 20 somethings in the comedy scene or at my office job.
Yeah. I guess my yoga studio might be like a transient to get to school, inner city something, because I see kids a lot around like 4:00, like teens.
And they're, I guess maybe I don't
Doing flip
also look
phones.
at these people and think about what they're doing. But that's
Well, when I
interesting.
see these flip phones, I'm like, oh, wait, you don't want to post a selfie in front of the St. Lawrence Market and post it on your story immediately? Like, we're millennials and social media. Like, I still think I'm going to blow up on social media, and that's how I'm really going to get my income.
Yeah. No, I'm with you. I don't care if it's pathetic. It's an amazing thing if it works out for you, right? And you can't, it's like the lottery. Yeah, most people don't win. But like, I don't know, if you do, you're not going to regret that you played.
Yeah. And I didn't realize that we said this off camera, but, and I don't know if you want to say it out loud, but how I didn't realize you were newer to the comedy scene.
Yeah, I'm a year and a half in.
You're so good.
Thank you. Have you been, how long have you, well,
I'm about 3 now.
okay, so
3
you were
years.
podcasting before you were doing stand-up.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
The pandemic really, I started stand-up back in 2018, and I did it for about 8 months, and I was getting like physically sick on days that I would do open mics. Like I only ever did one booked show by the end of the eight months.
Yeah.
And I was doing open mics just pretty irregularly, probably maximum once every 2 weeks. So not really committing to it, but kind of being interested in it, and but also just getting physically sick, like the barfing and the shitting for real on days that I would go do open mics. Like I felt like that at Salto's. I like going to Salto's,
which
you know
is
what I mean?
like a pretty
Low
easy one. It's
risk.
like
It's
a
low
Italian
risk.
restaurant, neighborhood people chilling out.
Yeah, you're not gonna have your best set there.
Yeah.
Like ever, most likely. So it's like super low risk. And so when I did my first booked show, I was so sick that day, and I was so nervous, and I'm just literally like, the stage fright was out of control, and I quit.
Oh.
I was like, obviously my body's telling me I'm not ready to do this.
Yeah.
And I quit. Looking back now, I wish I would have pushed through, obviously, because I'd be fucking 7 years in instead
Yeah.
of 3 consistently. But I thought things were supposed to be easier back then. I think I was still in my 20s, and I thought that like things were supposed to start to sort of fall into place, and like my anxiety was supposed to subside and all of that shit. And it just didn't ever. I had to learn how to deal with it.
Fuck. Yeah. Yeah. It's the only way past it is through it.
Mm-hmm.
It's so like, but it's one of those things like you would never just figure it out in a direct line. There's nobody who has a problem that deep and is just like, and then I just solved it. Like it's always going to be messy and like zigzag. And if you look back on it and don't see a straight line, that's normal. That's like what, like the struggles of your life look like.
Yeah. And I feel like I'm at a place now where I've experienced that so much, being in my mid-30s at this point, where I was like, oh, nothing has gone to plan. A few things have, actually, but mostly nothing has gone to plan. And I'm like, that's what I'm strapping in for.
Yeah.
Like, if you want to like call it quits and go do something else and like really commit to that, but now I understand what I'm strapping in for, and I just know that it's going to be uncomfortable so often.
Yeah.
And I guess I'm okay with that.
Yeah. It sucks like sometimes when you think about it, but then it's like, I don't know. It's good to look back on things and go like, that was so hard, but I got all the way through that.
Yeah.
And then you realize like how much you've paid for the things you have. And so then they feel more valuable.
Yeah. Have you bombed? Like, have you bombed?
Yeah. Yeah.
How do you feel about it?
Honestly, like the first time it happened, I handled it really well because I just was like, this is a rite of passage. I'm a real comedian now. Like if I didn't have this story, like I wouldn't be one of the real ones. But then like it happens every so often. And then like the second time it happens, it's like, there's no way to say like, well, it just sucked that time, right? Like,
Yeah, you've already done the rite of passage thing.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's like falling off your bike. Like you feel like you shouldn't fall off your bike once you know how to ride your bike. But comedy's like a different set of rules.
Yeah.
So it's just kind of unfair and demoralizing. Like imagine
Oh,
if
it
you fell
totally
off your
is.
bike. Like how would you feel about yourself? You just be like, am I stupid? Do I not know how to ride a bike? Am I
Yeah.
disabled now?
That's how I felt when I fell off my bike. I have had one bike accident, and no one else was involved. I just fell somehow. The streetcar track wasn't even involved. I was literally, you know what? I'm gonna admit it right now. This is gonna heal me. Actually, I'm admitting this on live television. I was cold, and I was trying to put on a glove. I didn't stop my bike to put on the glove. I thought I could pull it out of my pocket with one hand and slide it over to the other hand and it would be fine. And I lost control somehow and I fell and I hurt myself really bad. And I've never told anyone that. It's been over a year now. I just told everyone, like, I just fell. Like, it was just my fault. I never told anyone why. The real reason was because I fucking was trying to do something that took skill off of the bike.
And then you hurt yourself?
Huge bruise. Do you see the scar on my elbow?
Oh my God.
Yeah, it was pretty bad.
That's brutal.
I couldn't go into work.
Oh my God.
Yeah. And I was in a weird place in my life where I was going to this job that like was no longer fulfilling. And my body just had enough. Like, let me tell you, because I know that I'm woo-woo, flu off the charts, right? Like, yeah. I love tarot. I believe that the moon changes our energy and mood. Like you can write me off for sure. I don't fact check shit, right? Like, I'm pretty a feely lady. And I really believe that my body was like, you so badly don't want to go to this job right now, and you're not listening and you're not doing anything to change it, and you keep exhausting yourself, and fuck you. Here you go. I'm gonna wake you up. I'm gonna wake you up. And I got into an accident that involved no other people, bless, and didn't hurt me that bad. Like, it was bad, but it didn't hurt me that bad. And then I didn't listen still, and I should have taken more rest, and I went back to work the next day. I walked and I fucking fell again. I tripped over my own jeans. I fell on the bruise. This was all so bloody by the time that I got to work. I messaged my bosses over video. I was like, something's going on with me and I really can't do this anymore.
The universe doesn't want me to come into work anymore.
No, I'm physically hurting myself, and I'm so stubborn because because you have beliefs of like, oh, coincidences happen and it was just an accident, it was just a mistake, and you can justify everything in this life. You can look at everything like it's a coincidence, or you can look at everything like it's a miracle. And I don't always, but I want to look at it like it's a miracle because I think that's more fun.
Oh yeah. I think when I was 13, I read this horoscope and it said, the world is not a mirror, it's the world. Don't expect to see yourself there. And it sort of triggered in me something that led to me giving up on astrology. And then that's when like my anxiety disorder kicked in. And which may have also been because I was doing a lot of LSD at the time. Yeah. But bear with me. When I kind of like had this like huge change in my mid-30s and I had to get sober and I had to become more responsible, that's when like I started being spiritual again and like believing in like astrology and tarot, and like the quality of your life and the amount of like wisdom you're able to attain when you think mythically and like allow these kinds of like beliefs to come in is incredible. And it's like I occupy the space where it's like I kind of don't think it's real, but then it's like, oh, I'm just gonna act like it's real anyway, and then I start to feel like it is real. And I feel like that's the space that, whether it's with, it doesn't matter what the myth is or like the religion, but if you have something, living with that is like deep, powerful, healthy. Living without it is like impossible, like limiting, unhealthy, and bad. Does that make sense?
That's a fucking clip. You gotta clip that shit out, put that on Instagram for sure. I love that. And I love how you said that it like increases your quality of life, because I couldn't agree more. Do you meditate?
I do yoga, but I feel like my meditation game I want to go more into that. Yeah. And especially, like I was saying to Winnie before this started, like it's this last year I've been more anxious. And I think it's because I'm doing a lot of comedy, having a lot of adrenaline rushes, and now I need some kind of like new game to like
ground.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's your whole process right now?
I have, so in the morning, we had a dentist on my podcast last week or maybe 2 weeks ago after this airs. And he got me jacked on oral health. So I've like, we all only have a certain amount of time in the morning before we have to move on to other things, unless you choose to get up earlier and do it all. But I find that very challenging, especially in the stand-up scene. So right now, I'll wake up. These are non-negotiables. I'll wake up. I will oil pull with coconut oil. It's like swishing oil around in your mouth because as weed smokers and smokers in general, and even people who might just be predisposed to dry mouth or, different mouth ailments, coconut oil, apparently it's like an ancient ritual where it can sort of like help pull like toxins out of your tongue and like all of that bad bacteria that kind of was sitting on your mouth after you sleep. Can pull all of that.
I can see that just because of the way of like using oil to clean off makeup, like it does.
Pulls it off, and then you don't swallow it, you spit it out. and you do it for like 5-10 minutes, and then go about your business after that. So I oil pull. I've also started tongue scraping, just because as a weed smoker, I definitely want to mitigate my chances of anything happening with my mouth and my oral health. So those are the first two non-negotiables, first thing in the morning.
Okay.
Right after that, I'll meditate for between 5 and 20 minutes.
It's like a sitting meditation?
Yeah.
So you're just...
I go between guided and I'll set like an alarm. So sometimes if it's silent in my home, if anyone knows who my husband is, 11, the only time it's silent in our home is when he's asleep. So, if it's early enough, I'll do silent, because then that for me, I can tune into other noises that are happening, the air conditioner or a vehicle I hear outside or something like that. And that's kind of an interesting present tool that you can use in meditation to ground you. And so I'll meditate 5 to 20, depending on how much time I have. And then coffee right after that. That's kind of the morning routine. I have swapped journaling for my oral care right now. I haven't journaled in like 6 days. But normally I would implement journaling.
How long were you journaling for?
Like 5-10. I don't journal for
like how long was your practice?
Years.
Did you find that helpful?
Yes. I find that whether I'm writing something out that's inside of me and needs to get let loose, and it may be, if you were to read it, it would look like maybe negative, like that, I'm always feeling better by the end of what I've written. Or so there's something there that wants to get put down on paper, I'll do that. Or I'll just write a list of things that I appreciate. And either way, I'm feeling better after I finish.
I think I need to get something like that going, where I just like wake up every morning and either work on a writing project or just write out my thoughts or something, because I feel like I'm not writing enough. And I think some kind of routine needs to be there where I just write every day.
I sometimes write comedy, but I feel you about that writing. Like I've had a lot of comedians on the podcast as well, and I always ask what their process is, because I feel like the Jerry Seinfeld write whether you want to write or not, like write every day, there's definitely benefit to that. But for me, like so much of it is garbage. Like when I write something that's good, it's coming through like flow state.
Yeah.
And I can't necessarily force myself into that state for joke writing.
Yeah. There's also like, I feel like when a bit comes to me, it's like, I don't know. I can then sort of see where like, oh, I couldn't have just forced myself to write this 6 months ago because I literally didn't have this opinion. But it involved like certain points of like anger, frustration, other things over time that then led to me having like, oh, I'd like to talk about this type of person that I'm annoyed with or something. So it's like, yeah, you can't just like force things out. I don't really know what I'm saying. I do kind of think you do have to just wait for certain states to overtake you.
Yeah. Not that there wouldn't be anything unbeneficial from sitting down and like putting an alarm on your clock and forcing yourself to write jokes. It just, that for me sounds horrendous. Like I'm getting anxiety just thinking about it.
Yeah. I want to see though, like, I guess like, yeah, I want to just see if I write every day, if it stimulates anything.
Yeah. Let me know.
Okay.
How's your crowd work?
It's poor. It's not.
Mine too.
It's not the worst. And I was always somebody who talked a lot in class and had that like as a skill set. But I don't know. I just avoid crowd work. It's like dating. Like I'm not bad at dating, but I just avoid it a lot. I should just do it. Because I haven't really had bad experiences with crowd work. It's hard for me to go do it.
Yeah. Shout out Backroom for me, because their Sunday night bucket that they have or whatever, they ask for, I think it's like a 6 or an 8 p.m. show. I can't remember.
Oh.
But when you sign up for it, it's supposed to be either new material, like brand new, like you've not tried this before, or you can pull suggestions from the audience and then riff on that. And listen, I've done it twice. I've done horrible twice, but like I will do my best to force myself to continue going to do that, just because it's the space where like I think my biggest laugh on the last time that I did it was like just acknowledging how bad it was. I was like, listen, you guys didn't read the description of this show. Like, this is a riff show, you know, like this is your fault, not mine, you know? And they took to that well. Sometimes that doesn't always go well, obviously. And I wouldn't suggest to necessarily turn on the audience, but but yeah, I suck
Turning
at
on
it.
the audience is, it's the worst thing you can do.
Totally. I'm seeing less and less people do it all the time. But when I first started 3 years ago, like it was, even at open mics, it's like, bro, we're just comics. Like, this isn't even working.
Like, there's people who do it as an art, and they're doing it in a way that is funny. Like, they're picking on the audience, but it's a game.
Yeah.
But, like, people who will go up, start bombing, and then they'll just be like, why aren't you fucking laughing? Like, you guys, I didn't know this was such a woke crowd. And it's like literally the guy before you used the N-word and people let it go. And now you're going to say, no, like your halfway political joke was too progressive for us.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm seeing that less and less, I feel. But I don't like it when I see it.
Yeah. But okay, so I want to try that one at Backroom, because I'm doing a later mic on Sundays that's sort of near there. It's like Bloor in Ossington. We do it at Teddy Beer, and it's Burhan and I, and ours starts at 9. So then if there's this like 6 or 7, then I can double that.
Yeah, it might be 8. I think it's actually 8, because I sometimes do their 6 p.m. Sunday booked. They do like different booked, like not mics, but booked shows. And then I think it's the 8 p.m. show. Yeah.
Okay, that might not work.
Yeah, but I'll come to yours.
You should.
I'd love
it's
that.
Teddy Beer. It's Burhan and I.
When did
a lot
you start
of that is, we just did our second one last week.
Nice.
He and I were both needing hosting experience, and it ties in. Hosting is you do more crowd work with hosting.
Yes.
And it's like, I've been acknowledging there's like that gap or like weakness for me. So I was like, I just need to host something every week. And then I host a monthly also, which is at Backroom. Funny Bitches with Karen Mitches.
Oh, nice.
So that's my other hosting thing. But I felt like I needed something more regular. And mics they're harder, but they're better experience.
Yeah. How'd you find your venue?
We were walking past it, leaving Backroom to go to Killbox, and it just has like a big window at the front. And we were like, oh, this is like a cool looking venue. And then the owner came over and started talking to us. And we were like, can we have a mic here? And he was like, sure.
Yes to that owner.
Yeah, he's really cool. His name's Oz. And like somebody else is doing a comedy night, like a booked show on Thursdays. And
okay, so
he's got music and stuff.
Nice.
So yeah.
Cool. Yeah, and Sundays are slow for restaurants, right, and bars and stuff. So like, it's a great time to get a mic in.
Yeah, definitely.
I'll come. I will. I'll come tomorrow.
Nice.
I was away for the first 2 weeks of September, and I've performed once since I was away, and I'm rusty.
Where were you?
Inuvik, Territories.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I have family there. I know, random.
How did your family end up there?
My dad and my grandpa worked there in the 70s.
Oh my God.
Yeah. There was like a proposed pipeline to go through, and so they were all prepping. They thought it was going to go through, and then the prime minister was like, "Nah, we can't do this," and they all pulled out like good boys.
But some of your family stayed up there?
Well, the pullout process was
Pulling out can be messy.
yeah, it was exactly. It was. So my grandma actually moved back to Vancouver with the kids, but my grandpa stayed up there and did some back and forth stuff just to like close out the projects.
And then your family, who's still up there?
My cousin is up there, and she's older than me. She's mid-40s, and she has a beautiful family, and I've never been there, so my grandpa was like, "Do you want to go?" And I was like, "Fuck yeah." My 96-year-old grandpa.
Shit.
Yeah.
So what did you guys do up there?
Nothing.
Just looked at nature?
The landscape is absolutely beautiful. Oh boy. It's like next level beautiful. It's so isolated there in Inuvik. It's wild. Like the places that you drive to.
Which territory is it in?
The Northwest
Northwest.
Territory. Yep. Just past Whitehorse, Yukon, to the right.
Right.
On the map.
So is it above Alberta?
Not directly, I suppose, but I would have to look at a map.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, I don't think it would be directly above, but I
Okay.
would need a map. Yeah, the landscape, I had to fly. So I flew to Kelowna to pick up my gramps, and then we flew Vancouver, Whitehorse. Then we flew Whitehorse, Dawson City, which I'd love to spend time in. Apparently has quite the cultural and art space there. And then we flew into Old Crow. These were just like little bus stops, but on a plane. And then Old Crow is like the smallest airport I've ever seen in my life. It's literally like not much bigger than your apartment. I'm not joking. Like it's maybe two
That's
of your
amazing.
apartments. Yeah, it's wild. And then Old Crow to Inuvik, and the airport's right there. The whole space is right there. There's 3,200 people living there. Anywhere that you're going to drive probably has less people than where you are. And I don't think there's like a lot to do. It's a different way of life. Like you do.
Because it's not just like we were talking about, like when you grew up, you were in a small town, but you're in between these big cities.
Yeah.
But like small town remote is like
you got to fly
a
out of
whole
there.
other world.
Yeah. The only way, I mean, you can drive out, but it's going to take a long time to get to something that is city-like. You know? Like you got to fly to Edmonton, basically.
Did it frighten you a little bit?
It made me there's a lot of stuff that happened. It was actually kind of like a life-changing trip because it really made me feel like, wow, I grew up with access to so much. I just think that I take that for granted. Even now I know it. I just think that living it and experiencing it, I just took it for granted at the time. Shout out my parents. And then also it like showed me that that's really like not a way of life that I'm interested in this time around. You know, so it further clarifies where I am, what I'm doing with my time in life, because as you get older, it's like, holy shit, in your 20s, you're just fucking, I was just a floaty fairy in my 20s. Like I did not take advantage of how much energy you have in your 20s. Like I was just partying and like living the dream, honestly, and trying to be an artist. And then you get to your mid 30s and you're like, oh shit, like there are a few things that you need to start figuring out.
So do you think it was like it made you understand what's more essential in your life?
Yeah.
And what do you think is like the core things for you?
Like I love to perform. So if I didn't have a place to do that, and I suppose that you could, but it would be the same audiences, probably not very many more people would get involved in it. So that I think would cause a little stagnancy. But yeah, I love performing. I'm an actor as well. I was doing that prior to starting stand up, and I just feel like it's part of, after I've done big girl jobs where you do the 9 to 5 and you fucking get it done, and I just prefer, even now, like being a comedian for 3 years, like, and being as old as I have ever been in my life, I'm probably the brokest I've ever been. Like,
yeah.
ever.
Do you feel broke?
No.
Like, because I find like being broke is like aging. Like you can feel older or younger or like broke or less. Like it's relative.
Yeah. I just mean looking at dollars, like straight up dollars in my account. Like I'm like, whoa, how did this happen? And it's like, oh, you've been being an artist full time for 2 years, you know, like, and you live in a city. What do you expect? But I don't feel broke.
It's been harder than ever, money wise.
Yeah.
Like there's more. It's easy. Your money gets sucked up just to exist.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Exactly. But you get creative. Like I can't believe how much upcycling I've done with like my own wardrobe and stuff, because as a comedian and an actor, probably more so on the actor side and less on the comedian side, but there is this social media presence, and whether we like it or not, if we want to do this as a career, there will be some type of brand to our physical body and personality.
Yeah.
So like you have to take that into account. You unless your brand is slob, you can't really show up in, you know, sweats and unpresented anymore. I don't know where I was going with this.
But like, okay, so on the money side, you're making more of things.
Oh yeah. So like you get creative. Thank you. Yeah, you get creative. We don't go out nearly as much as we used to anymore. That's okay. Now I'm picking up my ukulele again. Like I'm feeling you figure out how to fill your time other ways that are like nourishing to your soul. So like the last year has been the first year really where more often than not, I'm like writing a script, or I'm writing comedy, or I'm acting I'm on set, or I'm performing, and I do feel rich to do this full time, even though that's not being presented financially in my bank account currently.
Yeah, but it matters what you feel day to day, because I think you can, if you like what you're doing, then you can sustain it, right? Yeah. Whereas if you feel poor, if you feel like limited, or just like that you're not doing something worthwhile, like it's hard to sustain, and
Well, it goes back to what you were saying. You so beautifully said that. It needs to be a clip, Andrew. Make it a clip. When you were talking about not having a sense of belief or faith or hope, that does feel limited. So I think like performing creates a lot of opportunity. Like you just don't know what's going to happen. And that used to scare the shit out of me. And now I'm starting to like it.
It's such a good feeling. Like it's hard to explain like the kind of like high when you're just like did a good set and you're just like walking home, and it doesn't like, you didn't have to perform for that many people for it to, it just feels beautiful. Yeah. Like a high with no
drugs.
Yeah. Yeah. And like nothing negative about that high. Like you don't feel bad about it later.
Yeah. Yeah. It's very special. And then even when I'm working on an idea, when that flow does come, I've had to like get out of the shower. I have to get off my bike, like, because it feels big in my body. I'm like, oh, I'm on to something, you know? And that feels like, wow, as much time as I can spend in that place energetically, I feel at the end of my life, I'd be like, that felt good.
It's funny too, because I used to think like I really wanted to be a writer, but I wanted to write something like really important, and I felt like that was like part of what made being a writer worthwhile, was like you would write like this great piece of literature. But when I write like really, you know, my comedy is definitely not important
I think
literature. But
okay,
like, because
all right.
it comes from me, like it feels amazing. Like it feels like I wrote something. I don't know how to explain. Like the reward of it is as if I produced literature, even if it's just like something that can make people laugh, and the root of it is not smart or helpful.
Yeah. But that's so important though. Like making people laugh is so important. Laughing is so important. I think we start to forget a little bit when you get older. Like the people are attracted to the youth. I've been talking weird shit like about touching a young boy's butt. Like I've been don't clip this, Andrew. But like there's a naivety, is that the word? With young people. I had it too, where I was so optimistic. I loved being an optimist in my 20s and early life. And I find in my 30s that my optimism has been worn down a little bit. And I'm constantly trying to be like, fuck that. Like, I think that it's very important to feel good. And I don't think we're talking much about it. We're talking a lot about feeling bad and how we should fix ourselves.
Yeah.
We're not really talking about how important it is just to feel good.
Yeah.
And what you need to do to get
like,
to those places.
Like little kids will just laugh, right?
Yeah.
Like, but the older you get, the less time you laugh during your day.
Yeah.
And like the more of your life has gone not the way you wanted it to.
Yeah.
And then there's a lot of like I do think there's a reason, like you don't see comedians who are famous at 17, and it's like you have to sort of have failed a bunch in your life and then show the like levity in that, and then you have something that's worthwhile to other people who are also adults and want to laugh.
Yeah.
Because like 17-year-olds aren't like, oh, I really need a comedian in my life. Like they don't. They want like rock stars. They want roller coasters. Like they're having fun. But it's like
which is good because your body can handle it at that time.
Yes.
So I guess if you're gonna have a phase, it should be when you're young. Yeah. And then because it does get harder. I didn't know. In my 20s, I was like, oh no, it doesn't. Like you can just eat fruit and get enough protein and I'll just stay this energetic forever. And like recover from injuries and stuff like in a day.
Yeah.
In your 20s.
Yeah. I know. I remember being like still in my 20s, and a friend who was in his 30s was like, you don't understand, like drinking at my age, he's like, it's like jet lag.
Seriously. It's not 1 day recovery anymore. It's 3.
And like certain stuff like can feel like dangerous, where it just like a roller coaster or something.
I used to love coasters, man. I was like, and I had some weird pride around it too.
Yeah.
I'm the coaster queen, you know, like, and now I'm like, why would I go to the CNE? Why would I go to the CNE when all I'm doing is spending money eating food that will inflame the shit out of my body and brain, and ride things that will knock my shit around?
Yeah.
Like, there's no reason. There's no reason in your 30s anymore. Mm-mm.
And I feel like nowadays when I read those like articles where someone gets stuck on the ride, I'm like, there's no way it's ever worth it.
Upside down especially, I would have a fit. I would be screaming. How do you feel about being named Karen?
I mean, it works. It helps a lot with comedy.
Yeah.
It's a good to riff on. It's good to start out with. Like, it's good if you have anything, like when you meet the audience, that you can, like, I can just acknowledge it, and then I feel like it immediately helps me. I'm in a better spot with them.
Yeah,
and
I love some of your bits around it.
Thanks. And then I can go more places, whereas before that, what was I going to do? Be like, I have curly hair. Like,
I mean, you could. Let's think about this for a second. Do you ever jam with other comedians on your set?
No, I've
me
never,
either.
and I've thought about that too, because Backroom has like, they'll have like doubles where people go up together.
Yeah.
We should do that.
Okay.
sometime. Because I feel like I could. I feel like I'd be good at it. It would be an okay bomb because I'd just be like, I would just chalk that up to like, that was Winny.
Yeah. Do that. No matter how it goes, you can just be like, that was Winny.
But like, I'm assuming with your acting background that you've done a lot of improv.
When I first got to Toronto, I did Second City improv A through E, and was looking to go on to their conservatory program and got into it, but I was young and didn't have any money and blah, 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 whatever. But I got in, okay? I got into their long form conservatory program.
Nice.
I actually didn't, I wanted to get into their main stage conservatory program. So I was like, I think my ego was like, fuck you guys then.
Oh,
you know?
no.
And also I didn't have any money. But I was never a great improver. But I will say that, like, it is a skill that you can get better at. Mm-hmm. And I was booking more than ever in my year of doing improv just because I was lighter on my feet in auditions. I was less scared of that unknown in auditions when you first walk in and there's this casting director who could potentially change your life legit. I had a whole lot of fear around that. So when I was doing improv on a weekly basis for an entire year, I got a lot better, and I think it would even benefit me now. That's why I started freestyling.
Oh my god, because you told me that before we started recording.
Yeah.
Please. So you are now.
I'm practicing freestyling. I hate
rapping.
Freestyle rapping. I hate it. I would say freestyle. You ever see whose line is it anyway?
Yeah.
And they end with like a musical song.
Yeah.
So I'm that's what I'm trying to do. It might not be rapping specifically. Like I might find a tune or try and, not just sing it.
Yeah.
But I'm trying to freestyle songs because I'm not light on my feet. I'm a big clunky elephant.
But do you think that's like an anxiety thing?
Yes, it's 100%. I don't want to be present with the audience. I come from acting. I want to memorize my shit. I want the audience to laugh whenever I think they should laugh.
Yeah.
And I want it to be like a one-woman show and see you later, good night, thank you so much.
Yes.
But I also know that I'm never going to break through in comedy if I stick to that. So.
Yeah, it's like the opposite of what people want from a comedian. Like they want you to be present. They don't want you to be perfect. They want you to kind of suck because it makes them feel better.
Like watching some comedians, even comedians in the city, man, oh man, their crowd work. I'm like, you guys are good. Like, yeah. I'm learning from you, watching you, but I don't want to put myself in a vulnerable position like that. And I wonder if it's often a female male thing, because I haven't seen the people I've seen crush in the city. I'm embarrassed to say this right now. They're the people who crush crowd work. I'm thinking about men when I'm thinking about like, holy shit, you're amazing.
There is, yeah. There are though, like I can think of some women who are really good at it.
Sandra Battaglini is pretty fucking good at it. I've seen her kill some crowd work. It also depends, right?
It's like, also a thing like I noticed with some women where it's just like you can tell they've just like embraced their own shitty energy and like they're leading with it, so they'll come out and be like, look at how neurotic I am, and then they get like a neurotic funniness going with that, and then they're just like, so that's like existing, and then you put the jokes on it, and then I'll be like, I write like better jokes than you. And then it's like a shitty thing because I know I'm just being jealous, but I'm like, yeah, but my jokes will also not hit as hard. Doesn't matter how well they're written because you have to have the energy going, which has to do with like being yourself.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
I do have a memorable set at Comedy Bar where I thought that I was going to have between the end of my workday and between having to be at Comedy Bar like a 2.5 hour window. So I didn't bring any of my clothes. I was going to go home. I was going to get ready for this show at Comedy Bar and obviously do my set. And our day on set went long and I had to rush, and I had no makeup on. I had been sweating all day. My hair was greasy. Like want to again, going back to most of the time, if it's an open mic, it's different, but if it's a book show, I want to present myself as like a professional. I don't want to show up in sweats and a tank top and no bra, you know what I mean? Like this is how I want to present myself to the world. And so it was this book show, and I was just like not feeling myself in terms of how I was showing up to the show.
Yeah.
And it was that neuroses on stage, and I completely went off book, and like it was one of my most memorable sets, actually, because I had nothing to tap into. Like, I didn't have a battery storage. It was just like, this is me. I'm melting right now in front of you. And it was really a great set, but I haven't let myself go back there.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
I want to see you try.
I know. I guess what I should be doing is just maxing out my days completely, so I have no time to think in between.
No defenses. Be sloppy.
Yeah.
Amazing. I've loved having you on.
Yeah, this was so fun.
I don't know if we said it already. Your podcast is called
Disciplined Stoners. You can find us on YouTube, Spotify, everywhere you listen to podcasts. But if you are interested in listening, it would be like super helpful to me for a subscription on YouTube and watch it there. That
like and subscribe
onto YouTube if you want, like whatever. If you're not into weed, sometimes we talk about mindful stuff. We have a lot of comedians on the show, but we also have people like dentists, and we also have people in the cannabis industry. So it depends on what you like.
Nice. And 11 Raps.
Yes. My husband, 11, is the co-host of the show, and he is a musical producer and freestyle artist.
And then you also have a show coming up
October 19th with 11. We do a part stand-up show, part musical experience. It is a weed show. So that show, I would suggest, like, if you've never done weed before, it's in an outside alley still, but like we smoke it out. So like if you're like, I don't like cannabis, probably this isn't for you. Okay. But if you do, it is really for you.
And I want to plug my show, Funny Bitches with Karen Mitches, every fourth Monday at Backroom Comedy Club. We'll see you guys there. Thanks, Winny Clarke.
Thank you. That was so fun.